You're gonna get crossed unless you want to.
MI Legalize, the Michigan Comprehensive Cannabis Law Reform Initiative Committee proposal will allow any city, township, village, or federally recognized tribe to ban or to allow any size cultivation, processing, or retail operations of adult use of marijuana. In addition, it would allow any adult to grow up to 12 plants, and most importantly, it removes all the criminality except for transferring to minors and driving under the influence, where right now even a medical patient can grow 12 plants, but that 13th plant is a felony. Under MI Legalize, a 13th plant would not be a felony, it would not be a misdemeanor, it would be a civil infraction, punishable only by a fine. And so we think it's important to take marijuana, cannabis, out of the criminal justice system. It's a public health issue. It should not be treated as a criminal justice issue. And so it breeds distrust between the police and the citizenry.
Stop the raids! 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 Stop the raids!
Now I want to end the war on drugs. I want to end prohibition in Michigan. And you know, like I know, that prohibition has been incredibly unsuccessful. This has been a disastrous policy. It's not working. It's costing a tremendous amount of money, and it's ruining lives. You all know that. But what you might not know is just how much money we're wasting in the state of Michigan trying to accomplish a hopeless and failed objective of cannabis prohibition. In the state of Michigan, we are spending roughly $300 million a year trying to enforce cannabis prohibition. Is it working? No! It's not working. Is it expensive? Yes, it's incredibly expensive. Wouldn't we rather spend that $300 million advancing prosperity in our communities, growing jobs, building good roads? That's exactly how we should be spending our money in the state of Michigan. Not locking people up, not running people through the criminal justice system. Now, most of that $300 million that we blow every year is wasted in our courts.
primarily the reason that I support marijuana in the medical field is that it's extremely safe. We don't have any reported fatalities from marijuana overdoses despite decades of unregulated use. It's extremely effective for a real broad spectrum of ailments that people have, including pain, anxiety, inflammation, things that are very common among a lot of our people with any type of medical issue. So we have a combination of something that's very effective and very safe, which from a medical perspective makes it quite wonderful. What we're seeing now, I think, with the advent of the internet and a much better educated youth, is it's much harder to pull the wool over people's eyes these days. And I think you read enough about marijuana, you realize that it's been outlawed for all the wrong reasons over the years.
It does contribute a lot of money to the local economy, because when someone makes money, they're going to spend money. And this happens to be an industry where people can make money. And so they're going to go out and spend money, which helps everybody. Now, if the government would get in on it here and say allow dispensaries in this area, like they do in some, not others, that's a lot of tax money that they're losing by not doing that too. If they get it out there and let people run their businesses, they'd make a lot of money. We wouldn't have all these roads that need to be fixed and everything else going wrong all the time.
Hello and welcome to the Slippery Slope. Today we're going to take a look at a subject that is gaining a lot of attention, and it's marijuana and money. And probably you're going to hear a lot more of it in the news as canvassers go out and look to place this whole idea of legalizing marijuana in Michigan on the next ballot election, which will be in 2018. So let's talk about money. Let's talk about what marijuana is in terms of money in Michigan. The potential in Michigan with a 3% excise tax would be about $213 million to the state treasury. That's based on 204,000 registered patients. And that's just on the medical marijuana side. So if we look at the state fiscal agency's assessment of this, Michigan's medical marijuana market could exceed $711 million should customers keep their buying habits similar to what's happened in places like Colorado. If we look at the Michigan 6% sales tax on items, we're talking about $42.7 million, which would be collected from licensing fees through fiscal agencies. So we're also looking at Michigan probably becoming the third largest retail sales market in the country, with a 6% sales tax generating $42.7 million for the sale of retail products. So this is a lot of money. And if you're not paying attention, marijuana is a big business. In the United States, the U.S. sales for marijuana is expected to exceed $7 billion. So I've got a couple of people with me who are on the front lines of the effort to legalize marijuana, and I'd like to introduce them. First of all, Stuart Fielder, who is the Tri-City coordinator for the legalization effort.
Absolutely.
And he's in here today after being out there collecting signatures for the referendum. And Jerry Spencer, who's the director of Great Lakes Normal.
Yes.
And he's one of the people who's working in the Great Lakes Bay region to help with the legalization. So I've got some questions I'm going to ask them, and I'm going to start with Stuart. Stuart, tell me about the current effort to legalize marijuana in Michigan.
Okay, sure. And thank you for having me on,
Oh,
Ziggy. Of course, it's always a pleasure to be out here. I've been out there hot running those petitions. Right now, our current effort to legalize cannabis in Michigan is taking a grassroots effort on this kinds of things. We have people who are not being paid to go out and circulate petitions and things like that. We're really trying to make this an effort for the people, by the people. Now we're doing that by adopting the current medical model of having 12 plants per person, allowed to transport 2.5 ounces up to 15 grams of concentrate, and this would all be permissible under our reform and referendum.
Okay. And the referendum effort is a statewide effort over 180 days, correct?
Absolutely, 180 days as of May 27th.
Okay, so the clock is ticking for that to take place.
Yes, and we just have been hitting the ground running for the past 2 weeks as far as getting petitions out to people and making sure that's all going smoothly.
And we should expect that you'll have people probably out at events, and they'll be seeing people with clipboards and tables and so forth asking for signatures. Is that what?
Yeah, and that's essentially what our strategy as far as getting these petitions is, going to the people as opposed to waiting for this thing to come, because we had this whole situation last year happen where they had thrown a 180-day benchmark on us with Senate Bill 776. We had the signature count available for us. It was just after the fact that they decided to say, no, this is not going to happen.
Okay, so this is round two.
Round two, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, Jerry and Spence, Jerry Spencer is going to talk about the history of the business here in Michigan, and Stuart, you can also add to that.
Sure.
So what's marijuana business been like in Michigan?
Well, since the legalization of medical marijuana in 2008, we've tried to open dispensaries in different counties and stuff, but they have been, of course, trying to shut them down and different things like that, because they have different renderings of trying to stop they were trying to stop the legalization to begin with.
Okay.
And so they would be now with the recreational I can't pronounce it. Referendum.
There we go. Let's all say it together. On three. 1, 2, 3. Referendum. There we go. All right, we got it out.
With it now, and was pushing that through. We've been able to stop them from shutting down dispensaries and everything, and the dispensaries are now able to operate in their capacity, and also our caregivers are able to operate without being worried about being raided and different things like that. But they finally came, or I should say, to their senses about that we are here to serve, especially medical marijuana, to serve the people with different illnesses that they have, that the marijuana helps that the marijuana helps with their different whatever illness that they do have. It helps, I say, the cancer patients with their chemo, helps them with calm the side effects of the chemo down.
Okay.
And so far now that we've gotten that all straightened out, it's on a roll, and they're easing up on us, and we can continue go forward.
But the retail business is going to be added to that, which is another end of it. Stuart, what's going to happen with that?
Part of the issues that we're having right now with the medical programs that are going on is that they're incorporating these new licensing laws that have just passed by Rick Snyder. And you just seen in Detroit, we've had almost over 160 dispensaries raided. And the issue because of these ratings are because they aren't properly licensed. And we wanted to make sure that under the recreational laws that we are properly licensing all of our dispensaries so that the tax revenue can come back into the state of Michigan properly. Okay. Now, what we've seen in Detroit is all of these dispensaries getting rated for having massive grow ops without like state approval and things like that. And I mean, MI Legalize isn't by any means going to support any illegal operation. This is why we're on this referendum right now, to try to make sure that the recreational laws are set so dispensaries like these can operate under a Class A or a Class B or a Class C license and be able to operate freely in Michigan.
And well, I was going to say, it would seem as if passing this referendum then would help to legitimize the sale of marijuana, regulate it, and also put out of business anybody who's not paying taxes and or is doing something that is not according to the rules that everybody wants to operate by.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's another reason that they were closing down dispensaries is because of what we call wax. It's the concentrates. At that time, the concentrates weren't legal, and they would go into these dispensaries that are selling concentrates and edibles and shut them down because they were selling the concentrates and edibles. Now that they have legalized the concentrates and edibles here in the state of Michigan, that's helped the dispensaries out there to slow the raids down.
Okay. Now, and you just brought up the fact that the product line here is not just smokable marijuana. There's oils, there's food products, there's pills, creams.
CBD actually is a derivative of the hemp plant, I believe.
Okay.
We have taken the CBD out, and actually that's already been federally declassified as far as legality goes.
Okay. And you mentioned the hemp plant. There's probably some people interested in developing hemp again, like there was during World War II.
Absolutely. Hemp is going to be a big market for Michigan.
Matter of fact, once we legalize the hemp, we have farmers back to work. We have factories opening back up to process the hemp into paper, into building material, into what used to be plastics will become hemp products now, and that will open up thousands of jobs here in the state of Michigan and open up many factories again.
Yeah, kind of interesting. When I was in Vietnam recently, there was a lot of clothing made out of hemp.
Yeah.
Yes,
and it's very nice clothing. Very soft, very durable.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the hemp clothing has a special interest in it, is because the fabric itself during the summer keeps you cool, during the winter keeps you warm.
Yeah. So there could be a resurgence of that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let me ask about the economic impact of legalizing marijuana in Michigan.
Okay.
We know what it's done in other states. What do you think will happen to Michigan if marijuana is legalized?
Well, if you take Colorado for an example, last March, Colorado hit the highest selling record for marijuana in the state. They sold $261 million in that 1 month worth of marijuana, and then the state themselves received $51 million in tax revenue, which of course is close to $2 million a day. The state itself was taken in.
Okay.
That helps out roads.
So they've had a success story there. Do you think we'll have the same thing happen in Michigan?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if we're following the same Colorado model as far as regulation systems, I mean, I think Colorado's under a 4 or 5% tax system thing.
Right.
They are just killing numbers. They're to the point where they're making in so much tax money that they have to
As a matter of
give back to the
fact,
citizens.
Colorado just also hit a record for the unemployment at 2.3.
Yeah. Well, the Colorado's wholesale marijuana tax was at 15%, and they're now dropping it to 10%, and they're going to actually drop it to 8%. But part of the reason they're doing that is they want to make sure that the pricing of legal marijuana doesn't lose to the competition of illegal marijuana.
Yes.
And Oregon's done the same thing. They went from a 25% excise tax to a 17%. So, but those, still pretty good
Trying
taxes.
to close the black markets down.
Trying to close the black markets
And we're
down.
seeing a reaction out of the black markets going from cannabis and looking for actual other places to make money. And this is why we're looking at such an opiate epidemic. This is one of the contributory factors of this whole thing, is that now that marijuana has finally moved out of the black market and into the real federal tax system, we're seeing more really hardcore drugs coming out, and the violent offenders, and I think these are the people that we really need to be starting to initiate the conversation about as far as getting violent drug offenders off the streets.
Sure, and that's a real priority for everybody.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you, you kind of leaned into it. There's concerns about legalizing marijuana and that it becomes a gateway drug for other drugs. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, so my personal position right now, I am a case manager. I'm a mental health counselor. I help people who have these sorts of addictions addictions every day. I try to talk with people who have the heroin addictions, and marijuana wasn't their first start. The first start was when they didn't have the paycheck to make sure that their kids were getting fed, and they had to do something about it. The society that we're living in right now is really structuring and feeding the problems that we do have with people in America today, not just Michigan alone. We're looking at an opioid epidemic. You mentioned Vietnam. There was more people who have, 59,000 people have died of opioid epidemic. That's more people who have died in the whole war of fighting for Vietnam. And this is an issue that is not being produced enough to the public eye. And now look at what conservative estimates show, that legalization of cannabis nationwide would lower prescription drug costs by $468 million while putting 28 billion into the tax system. I'm looking at marijuana as a system to not just fix our economic structure, but fix the opioid epidemic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this question here, because I want to get this question. Don't want to lose time. So, what do people know now, or what do they need to know about this referendum that's being canvassed for 2018?
It's not going to take any of your rights away.
Okay.
But people are very, very concerned that by legalizing cannabis, it's going to either make medical patients' cards useless or like have some sort of effect on them negatively. I don't see any of these implications coming to effect. Like, we've had conversations with people who are really anti-cannabis, and the first thing out of their mouth is like, "Oh, what are you going to do about the kids?" Or "What are you going to do about the people driving on the roads?" And there is some field sobriety tests that are actually under scientific reputation right now.
Talking
for
about
outside road
driving
testing.
under the influence, the Colorado State Police have done documents on that. They said that they have had 0 traffic violations with just cannabis and driving. Where they have the problem is when they pull them over and they have alcohol-related DUIs, and cannabis was in with the alcohol.
Okay. All right. So alcohol is still probably the single biggest problem we have. So let me kind of wrap this up here, because I want to help kind of bring this to a closure. So Michigan's going to have a referendum in 2018. People are going to get a chance to vote on whether they want to legalize marijuana in the state of Michigan. We know that other states have done this, and they're, first of all, getting revenue from it because it's legal. And secondly, they're regulating it, which helps to keep the black market from developing. And we know that there's probably in the state of Michigan, conservatively, 300,000 to 400,000 people who are using it currently now, either for medical use or through some other recreational use. The numbers could be higher.
Yes,
So,
it could. Yeah,
okay.
And to go back real quick to it being a gateway drug, it's not a gateway drug. It is an exit drug.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It takes you off the opiates. I'm an opiate survivor, and that's what I use to get off my opiates. I consider it an exit drug.
Okay. So marijuana could actually be a gateway to getting away from opiates and getting towards a more acceptable lifestyle, maybe.
And there's also another substance that I'm not sure the public is really aware about enough, kratom. Kratom is something that's also being put into Schedule 1 by the DEA, and looking at kratom is also another good source for our substance abuse counselors to be using instead of the Suboxone and methadone treatments that we've already been putting people on. And the scheduling of kratom is another example of how the government is just trying to figure out what is going on with this whole drug war. It's over.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it seems as if there's a change here. We certainly have put a lot of people in prison for smelling, smoking, and maybe being around marijuana.
And we feel the law enforcement should be concentrating more on the more deadly drugs that are out there, like heroin, crack, cocaine, and different drugs like that. They should be concentrating on that and not the marijuana.
Well, if I had my druthers, the law enforcement people should be concentrating on violence, which is a bigger problem. But that's another program. And V for Violence will be one of the programs in our slippery slope.
All right. Awesome.
So,
I'm glad to see you
with
guys
that
do
in mind, I do appreciate the fact that you joined us here to share this information. And we'll put information up where people can contact these people. And certainly, one of the things I think that is really outstanding about this is a democratic process. You people are going
Absolutely.
through the
Through and through.
legalization process,
Right.
asking the voters to vote on it,
Yeah.
finding out what the voters want. This is American as apple pie,
as a matter of fact,
Chevrolet, and
This is American as it
and
gets.
alcohol.
This is grassroots. This is people, like, I don't get paid to go work for MI Legalize. I
No.
do this voluntarily
We're
in my
volunteers.
own time. Like, I do not accept any kind of money from anybody to do this. I do this because I feel it's right.
Okay,
That's right.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming in. I think that many people.
Thank you for
will-
having us.
Yeah,
Well,
seriously.
it's my
Anytime.
pleasure as
Bring
always.
us on whenever you need to.
Yeah,
And
and
just-
get out there.
Yeah.
And
Just
try.
as a
Free the weed.
disclaimer here, I do not smoke marijuana. Just as a disclaimer.
And that is okay.
That is
That's
okay.
just great.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.